You chose that in that passage of music to demonstrate what we're going to talk about next, which is polyphasing, which you use along with the polyrhythms to create a deeper complexity.
Yeah, different people use the words different ways, but the way I'm using polyphasing to mean is when you've got, for example, two parts moving at the same speed, but they've got different numbers of notes in their phase. So if I've got this pattern that's moving in the same speed as this pattern, but they've got a different number of notes, so they fade in and out of each other. It's been done quite a lot, Steve Reichs and a lot of that kind of stuff, and the minimalist composer of the 20th century did a lot with phasing. But when you mix it in with polyrhythm, then it starts to get really interesting because, for example, I could have a 7/5, but each of the parts, the 7 and the 5, have both only got 3 notes in their part. So the 7 is phasing in 3, you could say, and the 5 is phasing in 3. So like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sounds like this. Whereas if you had them moving at the same speed, it would just sound like this.
And what would it sound like if it was a 7 and a 5 with the 7 phasing in 7 and the 5 in 5? So not phasing.
So the 7 phasing in 7, the pattern's like a simple scale: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. Over it says 5, and 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can clearly see the 7 and the 5. Sorry, hang on. It's something I never really practiced because it's not very interesting. No. Just having a 7/5 just straight, patterns of a pattern of 7, a pattern of 5, is the kind of thing I did right at the beginning when I was just learning to do 7/5, and I needed that to be able to keep it together. But once you can do that, it's much more interesting playing when the 7 has anything that's not a multiple of 7, and the 5 has anything that's not a multiple of 5, and then it sort of weaves in and out. Creates longer phase patterns before they come back to the beginning again.
Yeah, so are you using pretty much exclusively polyrhythm with polyphasing now?
Pretty much exclusively. I mean, every now and again I might not do. But it really extends the phase out. If you've got 7/5, then they meet every 1. Right?
Yeah.
So this one here, or even... They meet again and again. But if you had 7/5 phasing in 3, like if I did a pattern where I just did 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 with a 7, and 1, 2, 3 with a 5, you'd get this. 1. So the phase pattern's much longer. It's much more going on before you get back to the 1. So it kind of orbits round and then again meets in the 1. And the more you multiply these numbers out, the more you're adding more polyrhythms and higher phase numbers, the longer this space is between the very first one and the point where it all meets round again, like an orbit, like an eclipse.
So just taking that, the 7 phasing in 3 and the 5 phasing in 3, when will they meet?
Well, after the 7's done 7 lots of 3 and the 5's done 5 lots of 3. I mean, if you listen to this here. 1. You'll hear between each time I say 1, there's 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So after 7 of those and 5 of them, they meet again on the 1. Otherwise, they're not meeting there at the beginning. Every time the 1 comes around polyrhythmically, like, hang on. It's they're not going to be in the same place. So they come back to exactly the same place again after 7 lots of the 3, 7 lots of the 7, and 5 lots of the 5. Obviously, it's going to be 7 lots of the 7, isn't it? Because, okay. I don't want to patronise anybody who might be watching this.
And going back to the idea of the polyrhythms working best when they are primes, does that work? The same principle work for polyphasing? I know you said that it's better if they don't. So if a 5 doesn't use 5 or a 10. Or...
The phase patterns don't need to be primed. For me, I particularly use a lot of 4s, 2s, 6s mainly because I'm using prime polyrhythms. I'm using 7 against 5 against 3 against 2. So if I'm using 4 phases and 6 phases and 8 phases, then they're not going to clash with the actual numbers. So they're going to multiply out to bigger numbers. I don't want to use 7 phases with a 7 or 5 phases with a 5. So I'm more likely to use much more divisible numbers. Like 12 is really great because you can just chop it lots of ways. But a lot of my phase patterns are 4s, 3s, 2s, 6s. And then the polyrhythms themselves are 7s, 5s, 3s. That's just my preference. I don't know if there's anything... No reason why you couldn't do polyrhythms of 8 against 3 and phase the 8 and 7 and phase the 3 and 5, but I just haven't done that much.
And in the etude, you've played around quite a lot with note patterns, haven't you? That it's not always scales or rising or falling numbers.
Yeah, I mean the 8th etude's a good example of a really simple pattern of this. It's like a high note and 3 low notes. On the other hand, a low note and 3 high notes, which on its own would just sound like this. A bit like a churny exercise or something like that. But when you play the right hand at a speed of 5 and left hand against a speed of 3, so you've got a 4 phase, 1, 2, 3, 4, but moving 5 against 3, then they weave in a really interesting way. You get this. That sort of thing. That's just a little example of one of the patterns from the 8th etude.
That's really interesting addition to the understanding of polyrhythm in your music. And what would be really good to talk about in the next video would be how polyrhythm and polyphasing serves your musical vision. And we'll do that. So do you want to play us out with one of the etudes that best...
Yeah, I suppose a good example, an easy to see example of what's going on there is the end of the 2nd etude, because you've just got a little rising 4 and a falling 4 and a falling 5, but they're at prime speeds, 2 against 3 against 5, so it sounds like this.